Hi, good evening. My name's Pete Bruce. I'm here with my colleagues, Debbie Higgins with Cornerstone Caregiving, and also with Maggie Kuriakis, who works with me at Bridges by Epic of Westwood. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to do a first of three-part series on specifically about dementia care. Bridges by Epic of Westwood is located at 140 University Avenue in Westwood. We've been operating there for approximately 7 years. We are what is called a memory care assisted living. And part of what we do in the community and surrounding communities is go into places like this in the Westwood Library, and we do presentations for the public. Many folks attend these. Tonight we're going to be doing more of a kind of talk and perhaps question and answer at the end. We'll see how that goes. But the topic tonight is about the importance of connection in meaningful activities to do with your loved one who is living with dementia. Part of what we usually will talk to folks about is the incredible impact of isolation on a person who is living with dementia. We just came through a pandemic. All of us just came through a pandemic a couple years ago, and we found in the industry that we work in a very, very high instance of the progression of dementia, and some of that is related not only to just the natural progression, but also we found isolation is certainly can be very profound. Loneliness can have a significant negative effect on overall health. We know that in general, but specifically with those who have dementia, it can be very, very difficult. What it does, just the whole idea of isolation, it leads to a higher risk for a variety of physical and mental conditions, including high blood pressure, heart disease, a weakened immune system, anxiety and depression, which is one of the key indicators for folks. There's been a lot of research and studies done for folks that have dementia. There's many different forms of dementia, over 100, and some of the specific things that clinicians look for is that anxiety and depression is that part of it. So, cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease also can be part of that isolation. Would you like to speak at all about this, Maggie, as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, research has definitely shown that individuals that have a memory impairment have a diagnosis of dementia. If they are isolated, if they're not stimulated, research has shown that their disease tends to progress faster. And compared to those that are in a stimulating environment, that they're using their brain more, they're physically more active, it has been shown that those individuals doesn't improve. Dementia obviously doesn't improve. It is a progressive disease, unfortunately, but it has been shown to kind of plateau a little bit. So the individual is able to stay at that level for a little longer because they're stimulated and they're socializing with their peers and their family and other members of society.
We also know that while approximately 25 to 30% of older adults live alone, many of them are not lonely or socially isolated. Conversely, some people may feel lonely despite being surrounded by family and friends, kind of not fitting in. You need to consider the amount of quality of the social engagement for each individual. Some folks prefer large groups, very similar to Bridges. We do a lot of large group activities. Senior centers do the same thing. And then there are smaller groups where folks Like I know of a men's group that's very close in Dedham that has only a handful of men, but it's a significant quality experience for them. And then obviously folks one-on-one, maybe two people going out for lunch, or maybe it's caregivers in the home, such as with Debbie Higgins has Cornerstone Caregiving. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Cornerstone Caregiving model, the one-on-one, how significant that is to help folks.
What we provide at Cornerstone Caregiving, right down the street based in Norwood, is non-medical home companion care with caregivers who have experience and or are certified with working with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. We feel like we're giving the gift to the family who themselves are caregivers and are needing relief. They have to work, they have to go out. That's part of the services that we provide, not just for the individual with dementia and Alzheimer's, is that relief knowing that their loved one is safe and someone's going to be there with the expertise to be able to socialize with them, play games. I have a client in Canton right now. We play puzzles, games, we take him out on walks. He does very well with a one-on-one companion interaction. Versus other clients that we will drive and take to the senior center so they can engage with their peers, and they do well in a social setting. And our services help be a conduit to making that happen and making sure that the person with dementia and Alzheimer continues to stay engaged, socialize, feeling like they're a valuable part of the family or the community that they're in.
That's a good point. Along with that, the Mayo Clinic, everybody knows the Mayo Clinic, but the Mayo Clinic talks about socialization and what it can do. The benefits of it is it reduces feelings of loneliness, it sharpens memory and cognitive skills, it increases the sense of happiness and well-being, and possibly live longer. There's the importance of social connections. The strong social connections are important for everyone, but for those with dementia, especially in the early stages, tend to withdraw socially. Attempts to hide symptoms due to fear or embarrassment or feelings of shame. When folks are not able to perform at a higher level, a lot of folks that we work with have ended their career. There's more difficulty performing even normal tasks. There can be a lot of shame that's associated with their loved ones as well. And because here they are performing a certain number of tasks and not able to perform them any longer, it can cause folks to withdraw even more. Especially important for family and friends, it's important for them to support their loved ones by engaging with them as much as possible in ways that are, this is the key word, is comfortable and meaningful to that person. We try to incorporate at Bridges lots of different activities that that folks used to do, and it might be, for example, a meaningful activity. A woman who used to love to knit, who can no longer, because of dexterity reasons or cognitively they can't do it, might have a lot of difficulty, but they still love that social interaction with other folks that are in a knitting circle. So maybe there to make them feel connected, but also to have a meaningful activity. Maybe they can take the ball of yarn and wrap it so that it's or to unloosen the yarn or whatnot. So it's still trying to find ways for folks to connect.
In gardening, we have a lot of individuals that were huge gardeners when they were raising their family, and that was a big part of their life. And some individuals can't garden anymore. They can't put the multiple steps together to be able to sow a seed and put the water in. So we have gardening clubs. It's one of the things that we have as part of Life Enrichment. We have gardening clubs and and we're able to work with our residents and say, step one, and then we'll give them the thing of water, and we'll ask them to hydrate the soil, and that's something that they get and they understand, and they are in and around other people that enjoy the same thing, and it gives them a lot of feeling of security and happiness. And the fact that it's a failure-free environment is really important too, where they don't have to isolate themselves, because no matter what they do, they're doing a good job. So we're not going to question them like, oh, you don't know how to do X, Y, Z. We're there to support them and make them feel comfortable and not a failure. So
That's a great point. Stay with us tonight, because we're going to unveil some things that you can do at home with your loved one, or maybe some ideas. It's all about tools in the toolbox, so that you can take what you might hear tonight home with you, whether it's in the home, or if it's in a memory cafe at a senior center, or if it's at a memory care assisted living. These are all kind of tools to use, and take what you want, leave the rest. Some of the things that we can also talk about is social stimulation, which can help to boost the independence by making those with dementia feel connected and secure about their support system if it becomes necessary. It's important to involve people with dementia in simple domestic activities, such as sorting the mail, folding laundry, as Maggie said, a failure-free environment, arranging flowers, setting up a table for a meal. These can also help to enhance feelings of confidence and self-purpose. As the disease progresses, verbal communication can become an issue. This is known as aphasia, and it becomes more difficult. It's important to learn different ways to interact with your loved ones. Nonverbal communication, one thing that we all have been working in this industry for a long time with folks with cognitive impairments, dementia being the large extent of it. And we know that nonverbal communication is kind of our bread and butter. A smile, I tell folks all the time when they come to work, as our employees, is don't forget your uniform. And what I mean by that is not a shirt and shoes and pants and all of that. It's our smiles, that tells a lot to folks with dementia. Sometimes physical touch, if it's appropriate, a hand on the back, a handshake, a smile. All these things are very important. Trying to gain an understanding of what your loved one can or cannot do at this moment of time. So a lot of times families will come in and they'll say, but they've changed, they can't do these things. So what did they used to do? So, and just try to see if you can modify that. Basically communicate where they feel more comfortable. Maybe where they're at in their disease process. Maybe it's 1946 in Tennessee, and that's where they like to talk about what happened during that time. Then that's where that conversation should stem around. Reminiscence is a huge key. Sometimes we will talk to families, and they'll say, they're just constantly saying the same thing over and over, or they say the wrong thing, that the communication is totally not, the truth of what they're saying is not even the truth. We usually will not, it's kind of the path of least resistance, as opposed to going in that direction and saying, no, that didn't happen that way, that never happened. The worst thing that we can say to a resident or a person who has dementia is no. And there's one caveat to that. That is if their life is in danger. So when you're visiting with folks, having meaningful visits, ask another person to join you, to take off the focus of just the two of you, so having maybe 2 or 3 folks there together. Considering the time of day when you're going to do an activity or whatnot is an important thing. There's a term called sundowning, which is at certain times of the day there's more confusion. It doesn't necessarily have to happen at sundown. It can happen early in the morning. It can happen late at night. But it's important to know, when is that person the best. Avoid visiting when you're ambivalent, irritable, or tired. These are these common sense things, but it's important to review. Avoid times of day when your loved one seems to have challenging symptoms. And plan meaningful activities. Just don't go there with nothing to do. It's sometimes easier. And when sometimes we have families that come to our community, or they go on a trip somewhere or whatnot, I say bring some photos that are going to trigger some memories, some good memories, obviously. Would any of you like to talk about some activities that you've seen that have been helpful, or some things you might tell your clients?
Well, I was just going to say, going back to making visits meaningful, it is extremely difficult. We understand, to be a caregiver or a loved one with an individual that has dementia. It's very challenging. But the key is to maintain your own composure and understand this is not coming, if your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister that have the memory impairment, if they do sundown or if they do have difficulty at a certain time and maybe they're a little more agitated and they say mean things to you, what's important to remember is this is the dementia talking. It's not your mother or your father or your loving spouse. And so I think that's an important thing to really take into consideration as well.
Good point. Some tips for selecting activities. So some of these might include, look for activities that are interesting and meaningful to them. So what did they used to do? Think about what your loved ones did for a profession or hobbies that they enjoyed. Some folks, it's the television. In television for our folks that are at Bridges is a very transitory thing. We might have it on maybe before or after dinner or whatnot, but it's not very long. It's more of a social activity for folks. We hear the fire engine go by just now. I don't know if anybody can hear that, but if we had a gentleman who was a fireman, maybe it's we look at some pictures of various fire departments, or maybe it is talking about what it was like to go to the firehouse every day, and was there a particular funny story, not necessarily talking about the crisis of how demanding it is to be a fireman, but perhaps a funny story that they could recollect. Maybe it was a favorite time when they were successful. Stimulate the senses. So that's a really important one. So maybe it could be anything: hearing, sight, smell, taste, touch. It can boost the mood and reinforce connections. Sometimes it could be hand massages. The power of touch is very important. It could be baking and doing a cooking project together. Maybe it's baking a pie together. Maybe it's maybe they don't bake the pie, but maybe they roll out the dough. Dementia does not eliminate the desire to be needed by others. That's an innate thing in all humans. It affects the person's ability to complete tasks successfully. Select activities that match your loved one's ability level. So, like I was mentioning earlier about knitting, Maybe you have to modify a little bit. Decide what cues may be needed and would be useful. The other thing is to not overcomplicate an activity. So having some folks with some dementias, it's very difficult for, it's called executive function, where there's step-by-step process to doing whatever, cooking or painting something or whatever it is. There's a process, so break down the process and by all means take your time. With picking the right environment, sometimes with some folks with dementia, noise or interruptions can be very distracting, and it can, for all intents and purposes, short circuit someone's process to go step by step through something. And set realistic expectations. If you see that it's not, if a person is not into it, maybe it's not the right day to do it.
It also might be an activity that you don't understand that causes them peace or keeps them occupied. I had a client that, for whatever reason, because I think it harkened back to something in his past career, would like to shred and place out, but very methodically, paper towels on the kitchen table. And his wife, God bless, would get very upset. And I just said to her, he's happy. He's content. He's peaceful right now. We don't understand it, but that's okay. And I think after we talked and she kind of looked at it from that perspective, because it's so hard when you see someone that you love that's different from how they were 5, 4, 6, 7 years ago, right? And the importance also of that power of touch, where we had a client, we had to figure out why he was getting so upset, and it was the aphasia. He couldn't communicate. It would come and go as by the nature of his illness. And we found that gentle touch really helped him calm down. And once that was discovered, it was a tool that we could use and that the family could use to embrace him, I guess, in his disease. And I think it made him feel like people around him understood this frustration he was going through. So there's different examples of things of that nature. If you can key in and tune in and maybe slow it down.
Be patient.
And be patient,
Yeah.
which is easier said than done.
Right.
Because everyone's different. And I have one client who's a computer programmer in his career. And now we sit with him at the computer when we go to the house, and it might just be the internet, and he doesn't really understand what he's looking at, but it's the familiarity of the keyboard and the screen, and it makes him so happy. So it's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, I've worked with clients that their loved one was a plumber, and so we'll get a whole bunch of pieces of PVC piping and let them kind of work through putting them together. Or, it might be something that guys do who are, woodworkers or whatnot. They'll have a whole bunch of, it's an activity that a lot of folks will do is, take their screws and their nuts and their washers, and you can take some small baby food jars and basically sort everything into different piles. And that's something, as discussed earlier about sorting and folding, and that can be something that you can do. You try a whole bunch of different things and see if it works. I'll tell you what is really awesome, especially for folks where it really is for anybody, but exercise is really important.
100%.
Not only does it have great benefits for your body, but for your mind too. At our community, we do a lot of exercise beginning of the day, get the muscles going. There is a lot of endorphins that are released, but it's also good for just getting the body moving. What do you think, Maggie?
And they have fun with each other. Everyone's doing it together, and some don't know all the moves, some do, and everyone's just laughing and having a good time. And not only are they moving their body, but they're socializing with their friends, which is really important. A lot of outdoor space over at Bridges, and whether our residents are able to ambulate or if they're in a wheelchair, either way, they get outside, they get some fresh air. They're seeing the environment, they're taking it all in. Our residents that are ambulatory, walk and have a little pedometer, and they keep walking and walking, and that keeps them stimulated and happy.
Very true. Another thing that we do is, and I know you do it in the homes, Debbie, is art therapy. There's so many different things out there. If you look on Amazon, you can buy all kinds of things to modify any kind of art. There's adult drawing and painting. There are actually brushes that you can dip in water and then stroke it across the page, and then all of a sudden it just paints for yourself. It's called aqua paint. There's lots of different things out there, but we do try to do lots of arts and crafts and modify it for folks different levels of ability.
I just also want to mention or point out that for some individuals who might have been like the president of a bank or VP of, some huge organization and had this humongous job, it might be difficult for a spouse to see them painting or paint by numbers or doing various other activities. But what's important for you to understand is that this gives your loved ones joy. And it does entertain them. So, try not to think about, try to think about who they are now and what their needs are, and not who they were, as prior to dementia, which I know is hard to, easier said than done.
And it comes down to success. So
Yes.
some folks, some folks can still, can still converse, while others cannot. But we try to reach where they can be successful. And if it means that, especially for men who are task-oriented and seeing something from the beginning to the end, and there's the product, it can be highly beneficial for folks. It's definitely for their self-esteem as well. But that's for women too, so. We already talked a little bit about baking and cooking and things like that. Doing it together as a group can be good. Everybody has a task. Maybe it is measuring. Maybe it is being the taste tester,
The best part.
Yeah, the best part. Outdoor activities, sunshine is a very important thing, getting out and taking walks. For folks that are non-ambulatory, and wheelchairs, it still is very important. It's the vitamin D. It's one of the things that if you go to your PCP, primary care physician, and they have to do labs, I will guarantee almost everybody is vitamin D deficient. So, getting as much vitamin D, which is stimulated from the sun. Going for walks, also changing the environment. Sometimes is good, sometimes not so good. So really knowing what that sweet spot is for that particular person. We have residents at our community who go out for a walk, it doesn't matter, rain or shine. And then we have other folks that don't want to leave because their comfort is their environment inside. They feel more at home. Reading for some folks is, it's a pastime that from childhood all the way to adulthood and into their older years is very important. Sometimes doing it together. So books on tape sometimes are good. Sometimes it's reading aloud. Not children's books. It has to be age appropriate, but books that or literature that is familiar sometimes is really important. Music.
Best medicine.
Yeah. What can we say about music?
Brings joy to everybody's hearts.
And pleasant memories.
And pleasant memories.
I have a client who's obsessed with Eddie Fisher. It's her favorite, but it brings a smile to her face. She'll talk endlessly about him. It brings back memories from a happy time in her life. And she'll play his records, and it provides joy, so music is definitely a good one.
And you know, the repetition of the music, there's nothing wrong with that. And for the caregiver, it might be a little bit different,
yeah.
but for that particular person, and if you ever try to, sometimes bathing someone, showering someone is very difficult with those who have dementia. That's an activity in and of itself. But if you put some music on, close the door, get the place kind of steamy and warm, and then put some music on. You can call it kind of like a spa. That's an important tool. We're talking about tools in the toolbox. Music can reduce anxiety and depression, agitation. We think about some folks that are at our community, and if you think about it, some residents, maybe the average age is 80, maybe 78, 80. So if you think about it, 30 years ago, right, how old were they? 40 years ago, how old were they? So we're not talking about, Fats Domino. We're talking about the Rolling Stones, and stuff like that. So, you might want to think about what really turned them on during that era. We have other folks that it is, the big band era and stuff like that. So these are all things to just consider, and try different things. You never know.
Yeah. Talked about reminiscing a little bit.
We talked about reminiscing. That's an important, meaningful activity. Talking about their sweet spot in terms of what they remember. Sharing and recollecting memories with seniors help affirm who they are. The problem with dementia is that there's a lot of loss that goes on, right? So not only with dementia is that they may be forgetting things that they might never remember. They might be losing their mobility. They no longer drive. They have people telling them what they can and cannot do for safety reasons. And so that can be very difficult, lots of loss. But reminiscing helps affirm who they are so that they don't feel like they are no longer a fit with others, especially even in the family. Sometimes some folks don't even remember who their family is. They don't know who their wife is, which can be really, really heart-wrenching for the caregiver. Reminiscing is a stimulating activity that promotes social interaction. It reestablishes life meaning for a person through connections in the past. We are all a collection of our past. Before this presentation, we were talking about our childhood activities with our brothers and sisters, and some of them were pretty colorful, and others maybe not so. But we were talking about our own scars from our childhood, not emotional scars, but physical scars. And we laughed about it, right? And we're laughing now. And so, those types of things, help us to connect to other people. I never knew you had stitches above your eye there, Debbie. So engaging in conversation and storytelling about the past, even if the past is not the way they really remember it, that's okay. Like I said, looking at photo albums, turn it into an activity, do some scrapbooking. Puzzles and games are sometimes a good thing to do. A lot of times we'll do activities like that together as a group. So doing, word puzzle games, jigsaw puzzles, word searches, crosswords, we'll do that as a group. Playing bingo as a group sometimes too.
Anything that uses they're able to use their brain, any of those word games or crossword puzzles, and that can be something that you do together with your loved one, which is something that you might be doing it more, maybe be able to come up with more of the answers than your loved one, but it's something that gets your family member thinking and engaged as much as possible.
Yeah, and if we go out for activities, whether it's, at home or at our community, it's important. Probably the main thing is about planning. and also going with the flow. So, if you go out to, the parks or beaches or cafes or ice cream shops or museums or anything like that, it's important to just plan ahead. And if it doesn't work out, to have your exit strategy too. Obviously, practically, just planning ahead. If there's incontinence issues, certainly plan ahead for those. Have maybe something that brings them comfort. Maybe it's their favorite pillow, or maybe it's some music that you can play on the long ride or something like that. For folks that are more high functioning, volunteering, is a really great thing to do. I remember I had a group of women at one of the communities that I was working at who got all around making baby hats. It's a simple thing to do on a loom or a hand loom or whatnot, and they all made baby hats and did a donation to the local women's shelter. So these are all things, or to a nursery or whatnot. So
It gives them a sense of purpose, which is important.
absolutely. These are some of the slides that you can look at it at your leisure. Volunteer opportunities that are around. There's all kinds of food banks and animal shelters and things like that. Not to be forgotten is spirituality. These are all things that are bring us all joy. Spirituality doesn't matter if it's attending church service, spending time in nature, going to synagogue, going to sing hymns together, reading the Bible or the Quran or whatever brings you joy. These are things that we want to continue to do as much as possible, and maybe reading or singing is done by you as the caregiver as opposed to them, but it's a beautiful thing.
And if you can't get, one of the things that said attend a church service, if that's just not appropriate, if you can't get your loved one to actually go to a church, it's not going to work out. There's church services on TV, or you can read the Bible and talk about some of the gospel or the that they go over in church. And so you don't physically have to do exactly what they did when they were prior to the dementia diagnosis. But if you can incorporate religion in some way, if that was important for your loved one in their life.
Emotions that matter. Research has demonstrated that it's not necessarily memory that matters. It's the emotion. It's what the feeling is behind the activity. If it brings someone joy, if you can have that spark, then you've won the day. If it's something that they're not responding to, don't do it. Try it maybe again, but don't worry. You're not failing, because this is a very difficult disease. There is no failure. Through your loved one, though your loved one may remember a specific activity, the feelings you create can change how they interact and improve their mood after you've finished. That's an important key point. We want to say thank you for tuning in. Would any of you like to say anything in addition to this?
Do you want to talk about the next event?
Yeah, the next event. We have a next event. What is the next event?
It's on a paper.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
So
Let's see if we have something.
We're coming back and presenting at the Westwood Public Library in November. Same time, 5:30 to about 7, depending on questions and answers. It's Tuesday, November 14th, and we're going to be talking about caring through the holidays. Holidays are normally a very happy, fun time, but it might be a little more stressful if you have a loved one with a memory loss. And so we're going to speak about the best way to enjoy the holidays with your loved one. So that's Tuesday, November 14th at 5:30.
Here at the library.
Here at Westwood Library, just call the reference desk and RSVP. The phone number is 781-320-1045. And then we can meet you all in person.
Looking forward to it.
We also have, in December, did you mention December 12th?
Nope.
December 12th, we also have here at the Westwood Public Library, recognizing and dealing with caregiver stress. That's on a Tuesday as well, Tuesday, December 12th at 5:30 to 7 p.m. here as well. If you need immediate assistance, whether it's Cornerstone caregiving at home care, or if you need us at Bridges, you can reach out to us. Debbie, do you want to give your contact information?
Sure, Debbie Higgins, Cornerstone Caregiving, out of Norwood, but proudly serving Westwood and the surrounding areas. 617-762-5505. You can get someone on the phone 24 hours a day. Thank you.
In Bridges?
Do tell.
Oh, Bridges is 781
251
6630.
6630.
Thought we would combine it together. Okay.
Both Pete and myself
yeah,
are there at the community.
We can be contacted, or you can swing by if you'd like to. You like to stop by. We're at 140 University Avenue in Westwood, right near Wegmans. It's across from Wegmans, actually. We've been there for about 7 years. We also have a great caregiver support group. That the next one is going to be actually October 11th at 11 a.m. If you are interested, just give us a call. What's that number again?
781-251-6630.
Right. So, thanks a lot for tuning in tonight, and certainly contact us if you need anything. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.